Hooray. All right, I have exactly six. So I'm going to start with these like two PowerPoint slides that I prepared. But I want to thank everybody for, coming. And so this is our medical student section, which is part of a section of the greater body, the MRS, which you see a symbol there, right? So Michigan Radiology Society. And then realize that MRS is actually our state chapter for ACR, American College of Radiology. So American College of Radiology, just for all the students on. I didn't even know what that was when I was a student. It took me a long time to figure that one out, probably right before I applied. But point being is that it is the biggest radiology organization. So there's several, and that kind of makes it confusing. And what I mean is that we have more radiology organizations than any other specialty. Last I checked, there was 53. Most specialties have like five. So we have 53. So it's pretty crazy. So anyway, my slide did not advance. There we go. So there's the names of our four panelists. And notice at the top it says symposium. That's for me to remind you guys that we are doing a student symposium May 28th. If you're a student that's on and don't know what that is. So basically, our whole goal, so when I say our, so not only MRS in general, but also you can see there are officers. Below my name, you can see Catherine Klein. So she'll be signing on here in a second. She's my co-chair, my partner in crime. And our whole goal when we created this section, it was to, or is to, right, tell students, so medical students, what wonderful things radiology has, but secondarily is to help you guys increase or make your CVs better to apply to get positions. So with that being said, that's what is going to happen on May 28th. We'll be doing this for the 6th year in a row, and we're going to have a medical student symposium where students can submit PowerPoints on interesting cases they might have seen on rotation, a short presentation. And like just give you an example, we had about 30, I remember 30 to 35 last year, and we pick about 5 to 6 to 7 to be presented. And the whole point being is that so that's be a CV booster for you, that you were in this, that you submitted, whatever, and hopefully, that you won, etc. And you would be able to present. And I think what two of the four of you that are on here, at least three of the four, I think have presented before. And I think two of the four of you have won. So it's a nice thing. So it helps you as well. So with that being said, is Dr. Klein on? Okay, she'll probably be on any second now. So the way we're going to do this is, so for the students, if you haven't opened on your Zoom, open your chat box and go ahead and put your question in there. And what we're going to do is we'll do a round robin. And what I'm going to do as a moderator for this first half, and then probably Dr. Klein for the second half, is we will then ask the questions and we'll go through, and every one of our panelists, all four of them made it, which is great. Thank you again. All four of the panelists will then answer the question and put their 2 cents in. And if obviously, as a panelist, if you don't have anything else to add, you can just say, nothing else to add so we can get through more questions. So with that being said, we're going to go, the first question here, it says, do students recommend sending letters of interest prior to your first interview wave? So I'm going to open that up first with Melis because she's first on the list.
Hey, um, letters of interest I think are useful mainly for transitional years or IM prelims. I did not send any to any radiology programs, and I'm not 100% sure if they're like encouraged, but I will say that for transitional years, I think they are really helpful.
Hey, Josh.
I got two interviews from letters of interest I sent after interviews went out for programs that I was kind of interested in and monitoring but hadn't signaled. Now I probably sent out maybe 10 total letters of interest, so probably 2 out of 10 actually turned into an interview, if that gives you an idea of the rate of success for them. So I think it really depends on how much time you want to put into writing them and sending them. Definitely not likely to get you an interview, but possible. So maybe worth a try if you really want more interviews.
Okay, Parshva.
I'm on the same boat as Melis. I didn't send any letter of interest to any of the radiology programs, but it definitely helps for TY, as she said. That's what I did, and I think I got a couple of interviews from the TY programs, but I can't say about the radiology because I didn't do any.
Okay, Hanye.
Basically the same. I mostly sent the letter of interest to my transitional year programs, but I did send to two other programs that I didn't signal. but I was interested in them. So, and one of them actually responded and they like invited me for interview. So I say like 50% successful.
Okay, great. I want to throw this out in case we don't get to it. Can all of you comment quickly on the whole signaling process? So in other words, do you think the signaling helped you? And then what level of signal? Because I think there was different levels this year. Josh?
The signaling is extremely important, so choose your signals wisely, because I think I got I forget the exact number of signals, but I only got one place did not interview me that I gold signaled. And it was probably about 50-50 for silver signals, and I got interviews at two places that I didn't signal at all, and those were the ones I sent a letter of interest. So the vast majority of places I interviewed were my gold and silver signals.
Okay. Thank you, Parsha.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole application process is moving towards as well. You get majority of your interviews from the gold and silver signals. For me, I think there were 6 gold and 9 silver this year when we applied. And out of the 6 gold, I got 5 interviews. And from the silvers, as Josh said, it was about 50-50. I only got 1 interview from places that I had in Signal. But I know you didn't ask about the geographical preferences as well, but matching the signals and the geographical preferences, I think that puts you one step ahead, I guess. Instead of having a signal at a place where you don't have any geographical connection, I think that doesn't help, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Hanye?
I think signaling definitely is very important. Except 2 programs, the rest of them that send me an interview, those were all among my signals. So I think it's worth that you do a lot of research about the programs that you are very interested in, and make sure that you give them signal, especially gold one. Yeah, I think that's like the main thing that you have to know.
Okay. Melis?
So for me, I also think signals are very important. We had 6 golds and I got all of them, and then I didn't get nine silvers, and I didn't get 5 of my silvers, and then I think I got 3 or 4 off of my signal list that I hadn't signaled. I didn't expect some of the institutions, like one, for example, I went to University of Chicago for undergrad, and I silver signaled them and they didn't interview me despite like me also having like a resident friend there, so, or like actually 2 resident friends there, so that was surprising to me. And the lesson I learned is that you really need to pick your golds carefully. I think programs are not offering silver, or not like thinking as highly of silvers anymore because we have 9 of them, which is really unfortunate. I wish there was parity and everything was equal. But just like the biggest lesson is make sure your gold signals are really places that you want to go. You may interview there and not end up thinking like, oh, that was great. Like I in particular didn't like one institution that I gold signaled. But that's okay because like just really try your best in picking your gold signals.
Yeah, just to go off of Melise there, I also did not get a gold signal interview, and I talked to the program director post-mortem, and she said they got enough gold signals that they didn't interview anyone that gave silvers, and they actually didn't even have to interview some of the people who gave golds. So, obviously, the more competitive the program, they're getting more gold signals, and so, you got to choose wisely.
All right, thank you guys. Back to the chat. So the next question is, can you please discuss your application in terms of research? So, Parsha, I think you're first this time.
Yeah. So in terms of research, I wouldn't say I did a lot of stuff. I had, if I remember correctly, about maybe 4 or 5 like case reports, a couple of presentations at conferences, and that was it. I didn't have any major publications, if you can say that. But I feel like in radiology, there is not a lot of emphasis on research, at least from my experience and from what I've talked to with residents. But even if you have something, I think that goes a long way. It doesn't have to be in radiology. It can be, in any field, just to show your interest that you are doing some kind of research. But yeah, I wasn't big on research. That wasn't something, I really enjoyed, so I didn't do much of it. And I feel like it's still fine.
Okay, thank you. Hanye?
Basically, what Parshva said is kind of similar to my situation. I did some research with like case studies, and also I had one major thing, but it wasn't published at the time. It was just submitted to a journal. But someone asked me a question about one of my case reports. So, I mean, it's very important that you have a research, but it's also important that you were able to talk about it because they're going to ask you some of the program about your research. So it's very important to know your research as well.
That's a really good point. As an FYI to the students, I was a program director for 10 years and assistant for 6. So I did a lot of interviews and I always ask people about the research. I would say, what did you learn from blank? So good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Because if you don't know and you're the 5th author, you really should know or don't list it because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're talking about. So great point. Mellis?
I actually had a lot of research, but that's also because I was in molecular engineering at U Chicago and I had produced a lot of research before medical school. So I had a few like publications in higher impact journals. For radiology, I think I had a few case reports and I was working on an MRI project, but that didn't make it onto my ERAS because it wasn't like submitted. Otherwise, like I did a lot of things with Radline, which is the Michigan radiology pipeline. So I had a few publications from that, or like posters, presentations, things like that. And then various other things. I think in the end, I was in like the mid 20s for like the number of posters, publications, that kind of thing. But I'm kind of unique in that I've had like a lot of research in before med school, and I also just participated in a lot of stuff during medical school. Um, so I did also present at the Society of Abdominal Body Imaging, Advanced Body Imaging, and RSNA, but that was like one project. But so the numbers kind of just got up there, but there were like I think 4 or 5 radiology projects that I participated in.
Thank you. Josh?
Yeah, I think the whole research item really depends on if you're considering more community versus academic programs and what the focus of the academic programs are. So I think it's really a personal question. And if you are more interested in private practice, the vast majority of positions in radiology are private practice positions. And that's probably a region where, you're not going to really do much research. So you may want to spend your time instead of, doing like basic science research, maybe you want to do a economics style project or an advocacy style project or an education or quality improvement style project. I really think you should just tailor the research towards what your goals are. Obviously, if you want to go to Harvard and work with, high field MRI, well, then you might want to try to do some projects related to MRI. But yeah, it really depends on what your career goals are. I obviously I have a PhD. I had probably over 30 ERAS items on research. I don't really think it had much sway on my application in certain places. In other places, people really wanted to talk at length about certain things. But that's kind of a unique situation. And it really depends on where you see your career going.
Yeah, thank you. Those are all great comments. I would say again, with my former experience, I would say that obviously if you can get involved in research and it's in radiology, it's a plus. So it's only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. And every place looks for different things. Okay, so next question is kind of a little play on the prior. So this one says, I'm going to read the whole thing, it's a little bit longer. How do you approach the prelim year? Did you ask for specific letters / specific personal statements or just use the same letters / personal statements for radiology? Any other tips or prelim year applications? So I'll start this one first with Hanye.
I basically saying the same like everything was similar for what I sent for my transitional year and for my diagnostic radiology. I didn't change anything. And during my interview, obviously they did know that I'm applying for a radiology and I'm looking for a first year transitional program. So they asked me more about actually radiology and why they think like I would be able could be a good resident at their program for transitional year, and what's my goals as a intern in their program. So that was like the question they asked, but they already know like I'm applying for advanced positions as well.
Thank you. Else? You're muted, Melis.
Sorry, my computer
There you
was
Yeah.
changing my script glitching. For me, I think I use the same recommenders. So I think a little bit of background information might be useful for everybody. I'm like very innovation focused, and so that's where a lot of my research was also focused. My letters of rec for radiology programs, I think a few radiology programs I had like more of a research letter for like the academic portion. So like within radiology programs, there was like a little bit of variation, but then from radiology to TY, so I had an internal medicine primary care letter and a letter for my ICU sub-I. And then I think I did I did two radiology writers, but not the like radiology research one. So I think they were like basically the same, but there was just a little bit of variation, and I think you could keep them the same.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
I agree. I think that you could probably keep them the same. Personally, for me, for prelim, I only applied to transitional years. I did not apply to prelim medicine years. So for the transitional years, I sent one letter, which was from someone who was a program director at my base hospital and was board certified in EM and IM that I had done multiple rotations with, so he could comment on my clinical skills. And then I had a letter from a surgical rotation, since you do have the option to do some surgery rotations during transitional years. And then I had my standard radiology letter. And then if there was a reason, for example, there were some places where I had done an audition rotation, I had alternate radiology letters from someone in the system at the transitional year who I had rotated with that could actually comment and, probably likely was colleagues with the person who was interviewing me. So I think in total I had about 9 letters of recommendation, and I kind of swapped them out depending on what I was applying for.
Okay, thank you. Parsha?
I use the same letter of recommendations for radiology and the prelim or the transitional year. They know the prelim years and the transitional year wherever you apply. They know that you are using this as a stepping stone to go into the advanced programs. So it's not going to hurt you in any way. You can use the same letters. I don't think it's going to make any difference. For me, it was just one radiology letter. I had a couple of internal medicine ones and one peds letter, and I used the same letters for all the programs that I applied to.
Okay, the next question, it's pretty straightforward, so I'm gonna answer it, and then you guys can throw in, it's not directly off your experience, because the question it says for IMG students, how many TY and radiology programs you recommend applying to? Since you guys aren't that, right? We have to use your experience with friends, right? Anecdotal. I would say as many as possible. So if you guys want to go ahead and chime in, I think we're with Melis first this time.
I think IMGs that I knew from other institutions did like at least 50 radiology programs, and similar with TY, I think. That's kind of like the number that I gleaned.
Okay, Josh?
Yeah, I don't think I have good information on this personally, but there's lots of individuals out there who advise IMGs applying to radiology. They usually have, pretty popular Twitter, Instagram pages, and they're pretty responsive to direct messaging. So I would get the most up-to-date info from someone who kind of advises IMGs regularly.
That's a great point. Parsha?
I don't have any specific numbers, but one thing I would say is, look into the program's website and make sure that you are applying to all the programs that are more IMG friendly. Some programs are not. Some programs take more IMGs. So, make sure you are at least applying to all those programs that take IMGs. But yeah, I don't have an exact number on how many to apply to.
Anya?
Same. Unfortunately, I don't know about the IMGs, but same thing that Parshva said. It's very important that you do more research about the program and see if they are friendly or not towards our IMG, because it's like it's still expensive to apply to so many programs. So it's important that you don't waste your money. So do your research before sending application to the programs.
Okay, thank you. So this next question is kind of similar to one you've already answered, that the panel's already answered, but I'll go through it anyway. And then if you all have anything to add, you can add more. Regarding sub-Is for doctors outside of doing one at-home institution, should we try to get aways? If so, how many? Is one doctor letter of rec enough? Sorry, one DR letter enough? Or should we try to get two? So per letters of rec. So I think we left off. I forgot who did I start on that one first. Did I start with Mellis? I don't remember.
I can start. I think it's like a triple barrel question. I feel like for letters of rec, I think maybe like two radiology would be good. I think if you can get at least one or two from like normal, like a IM or surgery or that like other specialty outside of radiology, that'll probably be good too. I don't I don't know if I understood the first half of the question. Oh, like OAs. Um, I didn't do any OAs personally. I didn't feel like I needed to. I think there are some people that have asked about OAs and um like within University of Michigan, and I think you should do an OA if you feel like you need to see that institution or like you really want to make a good connection there. But the sort of general advising I've got is that you can like if you're not doing a great job, you can only just like not do well or maybe like take that opportunity of being there away from yourself. So you have to like really be on and but you also can't be like overbearing if the program is like a chiller program. So I think it's really hard to balance.
Josh?
I had many radiology letters. It was really kind of I had a chairs letter because there are some programs that if you want to do an away rotation at, you need a chairs letter. So if you have the opportunity, I would recommend getting to know your department chair. They are the kind of de facto mentor for everyone in the department, so it's worth them at least knowing who you are. So I had the chair letter, and then I kind of rotated around to multiple programs, and each one I tried to make sure I got a letter at. When it comes to, I think the original question was related to away rotations, correct? Yeah, so I tried to do a nice spread of away rotations because I really think this is part of deciding how you want to practice radiology because it is not practiced the same everywhere and how you want your time to be spent in your radiology department. So I think it's wise to go to an academic, a community program, a kind of community academic program, a big program, a small program, whatever you think is going to fit with however many away rotations someone will let you do. This is your time to just kind of go and observe how a radiology department works in different locations and styles and you can really set yourself up for success if you land somewhere that's going to fit your future career goals.
Thank you. Marshall?
In terms of letter of recommendations, as I said, I only had one radiology, and I guess that worked out well. I've known others that had more radiology letters, and I have known other people who successfully matched who just had one. So I would say either works, but if you can get two, I guess go for it, just as a backup in case one falls out.
Okay, thank you. Anya?
I had one radiology letter from someone that at Henry Ford Hospital that I did my rotation, and then I had one letter from my mentor in radiology. He was my research mentor, so he more talked about my research skills, and also I had two others from one internal medicine, and the other one was I think OB. So I think one is enough, but it just make sure that your letter writers really know you well, because the content of letter is way more important than the number you collect the number letters. And also about like away rotation, I personally didn't do any away rotation, but I also wanted to stay in Michigan. So maybe if I was interested to move, I have done some away rotation, but I only did 3 rotations during my fourth year. And the good thing about Wayne is like our school works with a couple of different hospitals in Michigan, so that was a good opportunity for me to rotate in different hospitals. But other than that, I didn't do any away rotation.
Sorry, I forgot to answer the question for
Okay.
the away rotations. So for at least for us at Wayne, for me and Hanye, we were only allowed to do like 3 or 4 rotations in radiology. That was the limit for us, and so we were kind of restricted by that in terms of how many we can do. And so I did like a couple of home programs for radiology, and I did one away at Corwell Royal Oak. That was still in Michigan, but that counted as an away for us. And I think, and for aways, you can do it if you really want to get to know the program, as Melis said, or if that's a program that you are really interested in going to make a good impression. But otherwise, you don't really need it.
Thank you. Okay, I would say one thing though with my experience is that, so one is you are correct. What he just said, as Parsha just said, is that every school has a rule on how many radiology rotations you can do. That's number one. Sometimes you can get around it by splitting a DR and IR, but some schools don't do that. But what I was gonna say, if you know initially, and one of the points made earlier, I think by Josh, was about signaling and all that. If you know where you want to go for whatever reason, maybe it's your school hospital, base hospital, whatever, do a rotation there. Because nowadays the things that have changed, so this happened about 5 years ago, is that we used to have scores for step one. Now it's all pass fail. So a lot of times, other than your transcript and things that you've done, there's no score on that. So a lot of programs used to have a process of whatever, I'd say process weeding out, but a number that you had to have on step one in order to get an interview. Now that's gone. It really matters a lot on your rotation if you can do an audition rotation. So, but again, you're going to be limited on that. So that's the whole point. Next question. What general advice do you have for incoming third years that would have helped you throughout your clerkships to set you up for better residency applications? And I think we're on Josh.
Yeah, I think in general, the biggest thing is really just deciding, what type of career you want to have in general. You don't have to decide everything right away, but I mean, there's kind of a fork in the road, academic versus private practice. And, I spent a lot of time at community programs run by private practices. And, many of the faculty there told me that students who train at large academic programs do have a difficult transition into private practice. And so if you really want to go into private practice, it's probably best that you train with private practice radiologists, because it is a different way of practicing radiology. The workload is different, the expectations are slightly different. And so if you can spend 4 years doing that before you even get started in your career, that's a huge advantage. If you really want to do research, you should probably spend some time with someone who splits their time between the clinic and the lab and see what it's like to, work 8 hours in radiology and then go home and maybe have to write a grant or review a paper or see what that lifestyle's like. So I really think thinking about how you want your career to be will help you as you move into your fourth year and design your kind of rotations. And then the last thing is, if you really have any idea about what body system you want to go into, you have an opportunity to do some pretty cool rotations during your fourth year. If you think you might want to do MSK, do an orthopedic surgery rotation. If you think you want to do neuro, maybe do a neurosurgery or a neurology rotation. This is your time to kind of be able to learn about things that you won't really have time to learn about in your transitional year that can really kind of direct you once you become a first year R1.
All right, thank you. Parsha?
Yeah, for incoming third years, I think one advice would be to try to get at least one letter of recommendation during your third year, because you don't have that many months as a fourth year before you have to submit your application. So if you already have one or two of them in your bucket, you don't have to worry about it. later during the fourth year. And another thing I would say is if your home program has if your home institution has a radiology program, try to make some connections there, get some research in, talk to the program director, talk to the residents over there. I think that goes a long way, just showing your face there and showing your interest in radiology. So yeah, I would say those couple of things.
Before you go, Hanya, I got to make a comment because I was going to make it earlier and I forgot. And he just reminded me of what he said. This is really hard for students to do, I think. But if you can do this, it's going to help you. When you ask whatever doctor for, can you do a letter of recommendation for me? You have to say it like, will you please do a strong letter of recommendation for you, for me? Because if you don't say that specifically, they might just give you a crappy one because they don't really like you. A lot of the physicians will actually tell you no if they don't like you, but not everybody does that. So you have to ask, can you please do a strong or, favorable letter for me and see what they say. Sorry for that interruption. Hanya?
So basically, I think one of the most important thing is if you can honor some of your rotation, especially internal medicine and surgery, that would be very helpful for you when you are applying for radiology. And also if you can maintain the relationship with some of your mentors during third year, they would be your advocate and also letter writer in fourth year. So that's another important thing. Other than that, I think overall, if you study really well during third year, it is going to help you a lot when you are studying for step 2, and makes your life so much easier. So I think in third year, your main focus should be on studying really hard.
Thank you. Melis?
So I agree with everything that everyone has said so far. That's really good advice. I can provide more of an academic interest perspective. I have a really strong interest in innovation, and so for me, it was important to get involved in the research, and also, I have a lot of I was a co-founder of a startup previously before med school, and then so I actually have another one currently, that I'm working on, and so that was something that I also talked about. So that was kind of another activity that I did, and I will also comment that the gap between academia and private practice is closing because just along the interview trail, a huge theme that came up is that volumes are increasing everywhere. So it's more so do you want to do research and that kind of stuff and be in academics, or do you want to be in a community program that's more volume focused but maybe less complexity? These are kind of questions that I think you need to ask yourself, but I think your training is going to be wonderful regardless because radiologists are all radiologists. And so in order to prepare for that, I'll just mention I did have I think a strong letter of recommendation for my ICU sub-I, and I thought that was probably, I mean, I'm sure it probably helped because it demonstrated really good patient care in a critical setting, but also IM primary care. And so that's the whole flip side. And that was something I really intentionally tried to curate, for lack of a better word, during my M3 and M4 years. I went through my sub-Is and and also my internal medicine rotation very intentionally, making sure I was doing my best because I was scoping out what person would support me and be an advocate for me. I think that's really important when you're picking your letter writers. That's probably one of the most important. And then the final thing I'll say is I really think step 2 is super important. I think it's more of a threshold at this point, maybe 250 and above. But the better you do, I think the better chances you have in a more academic institution. I do think that is something I found through the just friends and also my experience. So it's a very difficult test and it's extremely hard, but just hunker down and try your personal best is my advice.
I do want to make one comment. You reminded me, Melissa, what you were saying. Ideally, right? You can do whatever you want, obviously, but I think ideally when you have 3 letters, one from radiology, right? One from primary care, right? And then one also from a surgical specialty or just general surgery. I think that's the perfect mix. That's what we always used to look for. Doesn't have to be that, but I think that's the perfect mix. Next question.
Oh, I want to comment. Hi, I'm Kate.
Oh, hey. So I was wondering when you were going to show
Oh,
up.
sorry, I've been
So this
here
is
for a
Dr.
while.
Klein for everybody on. She's also the co-captain or co-chair with me. If you want, you can take over start doing the MC from this point on. Go ahead.
Oh, I can't see the chat as well as you on this. But anyways, letters of reference, just on the other side of that being the letter writer, there is a couple of things. There's nothing better than having somebody help you point out, like give you what points they need you to make. Because, for instance, this candidate might be so well-rounded, but at the same time, being smart about it. Like if you are heavy in research and you're heavy clinically and you're heavy in radiology, you're heavy in this, then asking me, who I am a faculty career advisor in radiology, saying, can you please focus your letter on, my abilities in radiology and like what I've done with the interest group, what I've done here and here and here. And that it was so nice because I knew exactly what to focus on. It's hard writing letters. If, just try it out yourselves. If somebody asks you to write a letter, there's nothing better than someone outlining it for you. And there's no shame as well in doing that. Also, somebody asked about your third year or your clinical year. Be sure to log or document, journal what you can when you have a great experience with one of your faculty. Write down that experience, write down the exact words that they gave you and feedback, so that when you ask them for a letter, say, can you give me a strong letter? Because, do you remember that patient that we had that did this and this and this, and then you gave me this feedback that said this and this and this. Like, boom, that's a paragraph in my letter that I'm going to write for you. And you're reminding me of exactly why I did give you those compliments and why I think you are a great candidate. So, yeah, that's such, I don't know. I think that's really good advice
I
if
think
I
those
don't
are
say so
awesome
myself.
points. Those are great points. And not to embarrass him, but Josh, you were the first student to ever ask me a year ago, when I did a letter for you, as to what to write. He actually told me what he wanted me to write about, and I'm like, okay. So I wasn't offended. No one had ever asked me that before. I was like, sure. It did make it easier. So
Oh, I love
did you
it.
want me to read the question? The next one, you said you can't see it. I can read it. And you can moderate. I think next up
Sure.
is we start with Parsha and then Henya. Okay, so the question is, so I'm going to kind of reword it a little bit, but it says, if anybody applied dually to IR and DR, how did you approach those rotations? Then does IR hold more importantly your rotation there? In other words, I guess your audition rotation. And Parsha, you're starting.
I can't say much to it. I didn't dual apply. I only applied DR, so I don't have much to contribute for this question.
Josh, did you have anything to comment on that?
I did not dual apply. I did do IR rotations, but I did not apply to IR. And again, I think it's really vastly different depending on the program. I was at a very, very, highly ranked academic place, and the expectations for an IR student were, show up, be interested, be engaged, try to do a project with one of the faculty members, and, learn as much as you can. I did an IR rotation at another location, and they really wanted you to be good at running the back table, which was kind of a surprise to me. So, I would say try to talk to someone who's been to an IR program that you're interested in to try and gauge the expectations so you can kind of train yourself up to whatever they may be. But that's all I can really say because I did not do apply.
Melise, I'm not sure if you do apply.
I did not, so
But
I
at the
don't think
same
I
time,
can.
I know you talk to your colleagues and peers, so can you share what you've heard from them?
Yeah, no one my year applied to IR, but like I think 2 years above there were two people, and they both matched. I think that it is for IR specifically, from what I've heard, IR, DR, dual applications aren't really looked down upon as they used to be necessarily. And for people that matched, I think 2 years ago, they had very specific projects in IR, and they also put this on their DR application as well. And I think some even interviewed like IR, or like IR DR interviews will be one interview, for example, at an institution or like the same day or something. So um, I don't have very much advice besides like if you're going to do it, like do if you're going to apply IR, I think you should also just apply DR as well.
I'll make a quick comment.
Hanya, did
Oh, I'm
you
sorry. Hanya,
any
did you already
comment?
go? I saw you.
No, I didn't apply dually, but sorry, I cannot really contribute. But I do know, like for IR, a couple of my friends who applied, they did really great during their surgery rotation, and they also had a surgery or a surgeon letter. So basically, to talk about their surgical skills.
I was just going to reiterate what was already said. I think Mela said it, but my next door neighbor where I live, he's actually was the head of head of IR program director for 10 years at Ford. He recently just stepped down last year, and I used to ask him that all the time. He said he didn't care. So, and I've heard it from other places too. I have a few other friends. They said they didn't care.
Yeah, and the pendulum really swings. Like IR was very new, a new residency 4 to 6 years ago, and it's just if you can just kind of follow up on the post-match data and look at the trends. There's also the site, the AAR, Association of Academic Radiologists, often puts a lot of information out there, and maybe they even post some of the lectures that went on during the annual meeting that the ABR, the ACR, like they have some really good information out there about what is happening right now, what's the climate, because it changes fast. Sorry, next question.
Yeah, it's kind of a play off the last one. A little bit different though. Specifically, it's, two parts. Can you guys comment on common questions you were asked on an interview? And then did interviews differ for IR and DR? I guess we can't talk about that because no one did an IR interview. So just common questions you were asked.
I can start. I got the most behavioral questions on transitional year interviews and much fewer on radiology interviews. I would say the most structured interview I had at kind of a large academic center was 3 behavioral questions, and then we spent the rest of the time kind of discussing hobbies and career goals and things like that. There was a very relaxed interview at a community program where the program director mostly just wanted to ask, why are you interested in my program? Why would you, come to this area? And kind of tell me about yourself. And that was really the extent of the interview. And then I kind of had to grasp for interesting things to discuss with the program director to be memorable. So yeah, it really varies. I'm not sure if anyone else had that experience, but prepare your behavioral interview answers to common questions. Most societies have like a top 10 questions in the specialty. Look those over, make sure you've got a good solid answer to those, especially for your transitional year and prelim IM interviews.
Harshva, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Josh. It definitely varies a lot from program to program, but I guess some of the common questions were definitely tell me about yourself, why this program, why radiology. Even though you already wrote it in your personal statement, you still want to reiterate that, why radiology, and you don't want to say word to word what you wrote in your personal statement as well. So try to make it a little different. I guess other common questions were like, other behavioral questions as well, as Josh said. I'm trying to remember some of the questions. Like, where do you see yourself in like the next 5 years, 10 years, things like that. And yeah, I think that's basically it. I think those questions were asked to me in every interviews. Then rest of the time was spent talking about my hobbies, maybe about some research. Definitely know your application in and out. They can ask you about anything from your application, so make sure you can talk about it, because if not, they'll definitely know that you are lying. So I think that's
A quick
should
word
know.
of advice. I want to throw this in because Parshva just said it, and it reminded me of something. I was gonna say, as a guy who did almost 1,000 interviews in my 16 years as PD and APD, I was gonna say is that if we ask you why you like radiology, don't say it's in my personal statement. Remember, half of us haven't read it, and those that have read it don't always remember because you look at 20 apps the day before, reread them. So, and when I would get that answer, it would completely turn me off as an interview, and I'd be like, okay, this nice guy not getting a high ranking.
And don't say you like puzzles. Yes. I just want to make a note that thank you, Josh. He wrote, I got my chat going there, Rocky. He wrote that the Society of Interventional Radiology, SIR, has a medical student section, which is fabulous, by the way. Just like the American College of Radiology, I would recommend reaching out to someone on the committee to see if they have any events or Q&As coming up related to dual applying. But, hey, I'm sorry. I just want to sort of also just make a preface, like I see all these questions, and we're sort of veering towards residency and applications, which we are going to have even more sessions in the future. I want to take advantage of the panel here and really kind of dig deep into their experience and stress, so just to kind of give some of the members. So I have a couple of questions I want to ask you guys. On a scale of 1 to 100, how stressful was it choosing the specialty of radiology? And what were some counter, like, pros and cons?
I guess I'll just ask a clarifier because I think the place where I was when I applied to radiology was I had seen all of these different areas of medicine and I had seen radiology and I couldn't really see myself doing anything other than radiology. And the idea that I was applying and potentially might have to do something other than radiology and also had to sell program directors that I wanted to come do a transitional year for a year, which, even though it's not radiology, you have to do it to get to radiology. I did find those challenging and it was a little bit stressful. So, yeah, that was my experience with that. I'm not sure if that's what you were meaning.
No, that's great. I'm curious. Parshva? And you know what, like, I guess another question maybe on the same lines is when I say stressful too about deciding to apply, how well was that received when you were going, if you did decide while you were still doing your clerkship, how well was that received to the different faculty on the different rotations, non-radiology?
I had faculty who were very excited and wanted to show me imaging when they could. I had faculty who said, "Oh, you must not like seeing patients," or "Oh, you must like being in the basement," or "Aren't you worried about AI taking your job?" So the full spectrum.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. There was a whole spectrum of it. Definitely, I had a couple of attendings who, when I said I was interested in radiology, and that was on internal medicine, they were just not really, I guess, appreciative of that. Because, even when we would go on rounds, they would, I guess, pay more attention to other students who were, I guess, interested in internal medicine. But for me, since I already said I was interested in radiology, I was kind of put on the back burner, I guess. But I also had other attendings, who appreciated that and, would try to show me images, especially on my like neurology rotations. They would, pull up scans and, try to teach us. And I think I really liked that. And, definitely there were a lot of people who said, the cons of radiology, AI will take over your jobs and everything. But I guess don't let that deter yourself from applying radiology. If that's something you really like, go for it. And, no one knows what's going to happen in the future. So,
Thank you. Melise?
I think choosing radiology was the least stressful decision I made, honestly. I was so glad to find it and finally lock it in. Um, I think it's a wonderful specialty. That being said, I got burned on my neurology rotation. That was the only one that I ever said that I was interested in radiology. And I got like the lowest clinical score I've ever gotten, despite the fact that everything was the same and I got great feedback. So I didn't tell anyone else except for like my like sub Is. At that point, it was like very obvious. And that was well received because they were like critical care docs and they're wonderful. Um, so I think when like Josh mentioned for the TY interviews, I think it's really important that you demonstrate that you would be a good physician. Like just because you're a radiologist doesn't mean you're not going to interact with patients or you shouldn't like the rest of medicine. And I think that was demonstrated well through anecdotes. Like when you were asked a question, I would always bring up particular patient experiences. I think that really benefited that conversation and lots of like behavioral questions for TYs as well, even radiology. And then I'll throw one other thing in here. And one of my favorite questions that I got asked at a few institutions was like, what are you most proud of? And so just reflect on that. I think when you're answering your questions, just like Josh said in the chat, like you have to be reflective and answer the questions kind of from like a purpose standpoint, like all of my answers either went back to mentorship, teaching, or like innovation and like pushing radiology forward as a specialty and like thinking of new innovative like treatments in radiology. So that was like when there's a sense of cohesiveness in the interview, I think it's also easier to talk about. If you just know yourself and reflect on what you're really passionate about and like the things that you want to do in this specialty, things will just flow out like much easier. So put in the work before the interviews, and your whole application should be a chance for you to reflect on that.
Thank you. Hania, do you have any comments?
It's basically the same, like the experience I had with different physicians. Some of them were very supportive, some of them they were more worried for me as a future physician. They were worried that I might not have a job in future because of AI, which I understand. Maybe they wanted me to make a more informed decision. But I like as Mel said, like choosing radiology was the least stressful decision ever. But during the application season, I think I was very stressful, like 100 out of 100. I cannot lie. It was really scary because you love something and you want to like reach your goal, but it's like there's much you can do. There's I mean, basically after your interview, it's everything is out of your hand and you have just to wait and see what's going to happen next. So that was very stressful. But overall, like I'm glad that where I am and I'm becoming a radiologist.
I'm glad that all four of you are going to be my future peers.
Me too.
That's
Dr.
pretty
Klein,
darn cool.
that's a great question that you said. But I was going to say, I want to tell the students that are on, and even you four that are now going to be part of our group, is that when I was in the same place you were, or the other way looking at it, I graduated 19 years ago from residency. I'm sorry, from fellowship. So I was going to say is
Baby, you're a baby.
that I was told in 2001 when I was a student, where you guys are, why do you want to do that? They go, AI is going to have your jobs. We've had AI for my whole career in radiology, and it has not changed, and it will not change. It's just a tool for us. The reason why I'll make it simple for the students that are on, if the students have matched on already know this part. The reason why AI will never take over, even if it becomes as good at us or better than us, is because someone has to be accountable to Mr. Feiger or whoever you want to say, blank malpractice lawyer. Someone has to put their name on that report. So, and that's going to be us. So, sorry, I just had to say that part. I didn't want people to get scared off.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's a synergistic relationship with radiology and AI. Volumes are just going to get more and more, and if it's going to help us and not hurt us, which hasn't hurt us yet at all. So just to remain positive about that and the future radiology. So Will you ever get on a plane without a pilot, even though you've got an AI
No,
co-pilot? No.
I think we have time for one more question. If you want to cover another great question like that, that's fine.
Oh,
Yeah, shoot.
I guess I'll actually open it up to the panelists. If you could give them one piece of advice that maybe you wish you received that you didn't get earlier, you might have gotten it, but a little bit later, like it was too late. What would that piece of advice have been? Anyone? Here's one thought. Advice is that no matter what you want to do, what specialty you want to do your best in all specialties because it does come across that really comes across in all of your rotations. So even if you don't do radiology, just do the best you can. Danielle, okay, then, and here's another great to add on to that from Daniela. What's one thing you wish you did during medical school that you know now but didn't know earlier?
I think for me, I don't know if this is a piece of advice that I really kind of got, but it was more of something that I just kind of became self-aware of during interview season and rotations and things like that. I really do believe that when people talk about fit, you can want to fit at a place, you can think that you fit at a place. But you really have to take that opportunity to be very honest with yourself about what your goals are, how you want your life to be. Like I said, the type of radiology that you want to practice, and how you fit at a program. Because even though it would be, amazing if your dream is to, I don't know, live on the West Coast and, I don't know, go live, go to the beach on your days off or whatever it is, or maybe you want to go, be an R01 researcher, near the NIH or something like that. You really have to decide if it's the right fit for you, and include in that kind of the lifestyle of the people who are there, the people who will be training you. Are people happy at the place? And can you see yourself doing what they're doing? And really, the best piece of advice I got was, find out what people are sacrificing that they may not be telling you about, because everyone is sacrificing something. You may not know what it is, but it's important to find out what it is, and what you're willing to sacrifice because there's nothing perfect when it comes to, a residency. There's no perfect residency, so you may have to sacrifice something, whether it's living away from family or, maybe not being at the specific institution you wanted. What are you willing to sacrifice so that you get that perfect fit so you can become the best radiologist you can be?
Thank you, Josh.
I think the advice I would give surrounds signals. Like I said before, I think your goals you should really think hard about your goals. Let's say you don't end up liking them, or like you interview at an institution you golded and you don't end up liking it. It's more so for like the interview process. I had an experience like that and it really got me down. And then throughout that, the next month, I was like, oh, maybe I didn't do so well in this interview. And I totally tortured myself over it. And it didn't matter in the end. So, like, just try to approach it with a little bit more. It's really hard to do, but try to keep in perspective that you're going to match at one program. So, it's okay if you bomb one interview or something isn't exactly as you expected it to be. And like I think that kind of plays into the resilience portion of what's required to be a physician. And then another thing is, yes, I do think, choosing between academic versus like more community private practice is important. But um, at the end, I think actually my advice is don't even think about that too much until you're actually through your application. And then you can reflect on your application. Like, do you have a lot of academic stuff? Then maybe like at least half of the programs you apply to should be academic, and maybe the other half could be community. Are you like really not an academic researcher person and you just want to do community? Like that will be reflected in your application. For me, for example, like I didn't really know exactly what institutions to apply to. I really struggled with that. But then when I was reflecting on my application, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like academia central, like, and I didn't get any community interviews. So you can do two things. You can, one, construct your application and then reflect on what it is and choose the institutions you apply based off of that. Or you can be intentional in constructing your application and it towards like a particular kind of program. I would caution against the second one because I think you should just authentically put what you're feeling into the application. Um, that's the kind of advice that I have, because like everything you do up to that point will contribute. You just have to do the things that you're really interested in. You have to show the passion. Like do them honestly and slowly and consistently. There's not one thing that I actually didn't participate in, but let me plug like the ACR, the medical student section. That's Josh did that as well. Like, tons of radiology conferences happen. Medical students get discounted rates, and maybe your medical school will support that. So go to conferences, go to these meetings, like participate in other things outside of your school in radiology. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to harp on that, Melise, I probably told Melise in second year, to the younger medical students on the call, is that try to join as many radiology free societies as possible. They're free for medical students. So join the AAR, join MRS, join RSNA. These are the big ones, right? And then on your application, you join now, and then they see on the application that you've been a member for like 3 years, 2 years. That to me says, okay, this person is very interested in radiology. Now, what I will tell I have the liberty of working with M1s. Now, hopefully this might be recorded. I don't care. You can join all the societies if you wanted to, ortho, radiology, this, and then it'll look like, and then you decide, okay, well, I'm only going to do radiology. We'll take the other ones off your application. And then it looks like, okay, I've been a member of RSNA for 4 years. Wow, that person's very devoted. They don't know that that you kind of set this up. Just a thought. Josh, I appreciate this.
I think that's great advice.
Join and participate. I think
Yes, and then if you want, yes,
I think
participate.
there's so many opportunities to participate. There's more work that anyone can do on their own. So participate.
Well, I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but time is up. So unless y'all have something you want to really say, the time would be now from the panelists or Dr. Klein. Okay, no one's saying anything. So otherwise, I was going to say, I'll just plug again on that slide. If you're a first or second or third year student, consider, submitting a project or a case, I should say. If you don't have that information, your radiology liaison for your school should have it. But you can always, send me an email as well. I can send it to you. Do you have anything else you want to say, Dr. Klein?
No, I'm just really happy to see all the people that joined our call, and special thank you to our panel members who, like I said, can't wait to work with you in the future.
Absolutely. All right, I wish everybody a good night, and congratulations you four for matching, and hope to see other of the students that are on this call in our future events. Thank you, everybody.
Mm-hmm.